today is House Bill 586, the Kindergarten Preparedness Program Act. Can we have Representative Clark? Oh, excuse me, before that. Vice Chairman, would you please call roll?
Representative Willis? Representative Pence? Representative Rubel? Representative Horman? Present. Representative Horman?
Present. All right. Without further ado, may I also request that everyone please silence their cell phones and pay attention to those who we have testifying today. We really appreciate you supporting and coming out in favor of the legislative process and being here. Let's go ahead and call Representative Hyde-Clock to introduce and sponsor and testify for House Bill 586.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, thank you for hosting this hearing today. I am Hyde-Clock, representative of District 16 with nearly 37,000 residents stretching to the edge of the foothills of Eagle and surrounding the banks of the Boise River. I am here today to present House Bill number 586, Early Childhood and Development Act. As a member of the Education Committee, a former teacher, and a proud Idahoan, I stand here to make a call for an investment in our current families and future leaders. This bill initiates a pre-kindergarten pilot program giving elementary schools the opportunity to start a voluntary kindergarten preparedness class. The State Board of Education will choose 5 public elementary schools from a pool of applicants. The trial period will last 3 years. This will generate local data, giving us, as Idahoans, the opportunity to revisit funding and the potential for ceasing or expanding the program. My good friend, Chef Gary Rainey of Ada County states, investment in the pre-K bill offered a better return for Idaho than spending on prison beds. A statewide pre-kindergarten system could save the state tens of millions of dollars a year in correction costs. And he's right, it's quite an opportunity for us. For every dollar that we invest in this program, we will see a return of $7 to $13. And that data is provided to us by the Ann Casey Foundation. Not only does the Early Childhood Development Act have the support of law enforcement, the private sector has taken great interest. As I have engaged in discussions with businesses and their leaders, I have already secured over $750,000. As promised, no less than 55% of the cost of this bill will be covered by the private sector. This means that we, as the legislature, as Idaho taxpayers, will pay 45% or less of this bill. This proves the commitment and support of our communities and also mitigates the financial burden the bill would have on the state. Committee members, I recently had a conversation with Sally Maverick, a young mother of 2. Sally talked to me about the importance of education and all the dreams she and her husband have for their children. As we discussed the bill, she was curious about her role in the preschool program. I was delighted to tell her about the parental clauses of the bill. Upon acceptance into the pre-kindergarten program, Mr. and Mrs. Maverick would be given an orientation kit that includes informative documents, pamphlets, books that they could read to their child later on in the day or for years to come. Sally, or her husband, would also have the opportunity to observe the classroom, even volunteer within the room as she desired. I let her know that there were training sessions and programs offered to her available upon request. In the Act, a teacher is also required to meet twice a year with every child's family. I believe this ensures that collaboration between family and their education their child is receiving. I believe this ensures that education. With this bill, we have to start somewhere. If there are members of the committee that think the samples are too small, know that we must be willing to give more funding in order to do such, to make it bigger. Chair, committee members, I have gone to the people we represent, the families, the business owners, teachers, mothers, fathers, the mavericks, and the children they're trying to raise. They have all given a resounding support, both verbally and financially. Our bill caters to the continuum of families, whether they are working and cannot be with their children, they want to volunteer in the classroom, or they want to continue to teach the children in their own home or in the private sector. We have reviewed the data that tells us that every dollar invested in early education will return $7 to $13, and that's money that we don't have to pay and we can use on other measures. I am here with my friends across the aisle. Representative Hansley of District 34, Representative Van Orden of District 31, Representative Perry, and all of these districts represent 182,000 Idahoans. Let their voices be heard. I am joined by Ms. Oppenheimer, the Executive Director of the Association of the Education of Young Children, and Leanne Simmons, the Executive Director of the Idaho Voice for Children. We have come together today to share our passion for the development of Idaho. We recognize the influence of a strong foundation to children and future leaders. We want to use this pre-kindergarten pilot program to gather data, to serve our constituents and those who have offered support and favor. An investment in this voluntary education program and is an investment in our children and an investment in Idaho's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Clark. If you can actually come back up to the podium, I believe some of the members of the committee may have some questions for you.
Here, how to adjust my beard.
Mr. Chairman, would Representative Clark have a question?
Representative Clark, will you yield?
Mr. Chairman, question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Representative Clark, there's been a lot of support about this bill in my district. However, how do you suggest I respond to those who are opposed to this bill? What can I tell them to inform them of the benefits?
Yes, we're great to hear the support. First, let your district know that this is a pilot program, that we don't have enough local data to know how the children will develop, and that this is what we want to do. And as we gather that data, we can show those numbers to your district. Also know the questions of funding again, and know that the private sector is prepared to pay 55% or more of the cost, and I've already talked to those groups, and they are ready to support and back this investment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Clark. Other committee members?
Mr. Chairman, will Representative Clark yield to a question?
Representative Clark, will you yield again?
Chairman, Representative Gill.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Clark, you stated in your summary that a school or a district can apply to be selected. Which is it, a preschool or a district?
So we do not want to have more than one preschool per district because it is such a limited sampling number. So we will have at least 5 districts represented, 5 pre-kindergarten classrooms in those districts.
A follow-up question, Mr. Chair.
Representative Clark, will you yield again?
Chairman, Representative.
Within the school district, how will it be determined what preschool is selected? Is there a standard, an affluent neighborhood with a more affluent preschool population compared to a more low-income population?
Again, we will leave that the education department if this bill does pass. And we can get further details.
Any other committee members? I actually have a question for Representative Clark.
Chairman?
I have to admit that I am very glad that you included options for parental involvement in your preschool programs first draft of this bill. However, I have to admit that I do have some large reservations about the size of the sampling and the size of the pilot program expansion. And of course, you mentioned that additional funding would be necessary to create a larger implementation scale, but considering that pre-kindergarten, or excuse me, kindergarten programs preparing children for elementary school are supposed to be hailed as, you know, the end to any educational problems within Idaho in the last few years, and we have seen fade out in that as well, and we have seen the similar educational problems persist with children being unable to, you know, maintain higher education standards, go on to college, go on to other post-secondary options. Not only am I concerned that this is a similar situation where we will see a lot of fade out happen, but the size of this program is hard to make a good argument for, you know, being able to accurately use that data to represent the entirety of Idaho. We're talking about 3 out of 114 school districts in the state, and a very few number of preschools within those districts. And then you're claiming to use this data to be able to justify expanding the pilot program or an additional program even further. I'm just very concerned about, you know, misrepresentation, you know, illusions in the data, an incorrect method of expanding this program that is based on assumptions and error. Can you persuade me against any of those, or do you have any way of assaying those fears?
Thank you for the question, Chairman. As you know, this isn't the first time pre-kindergarten education bill has come up, and it won't be the last time. And the problems with the previous bills is that they did cost too much money, and though their sampling sizes were bigger, we saw the funding as a reason to deny education. So I'm here today to scale down the previous bills in order to get something passed, in order to get something started. And I think that's what we really want to do here. You mentioned making sure that the data is clear, and we are prepared to represent a number of districts and know that the limit is set by our current price. Know that if we're able to receive more private funding, that we will be able to implement that in more public education systems.
Thank you, Representative Clark. If there are no other questions,
Mr. Chairman, I do have another question.
yes, Representative Clark, will you yield?
Chairman, Representative?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Clark, is it true that this is a public-private partnership?
That is correct.
I want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Representative, thank you so much.
All right. Seeing no other questions, thank you, Representative Clark. The committee will now call Representative Julie Van Orden. Okay. Representative Clark, is there a certain order that you would wish supporters of your bill to testify in?
Yes. We would like to have Representative Perry proceed next.
Representative Van Orden, is that all right with you?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.